Well, hi everyone, and welcome to Training Tuesday. My name is Heidi Reese, and I am the Training Programs Manager at Dayton Superior. I'm so excited that you decided to join us for this Training Tuesday. Our special guest is Mr. Chuck Hoke. I hope all of you guys know him, and we'll get to him in a minute. But first, I want to remind everyone that you have joined muted, but I don't want you to not ask any questions or comments. You can talk through your Zoom functionality through chat or the Q&A section of Zoom. And you can do that with me as Chuck is talking. We can see about the weather, but I do want you to pay attention because there's a quiz at the end. Just kidding. Possibly one day, but anyway, I also want to remind you guys that we record every one of these and put them out on our YouTube channel so that you can access them later for refreshers or send them on to different people that might, find some benefit from it. And with that, let's get to this slide right here. This presentation is intended for training purposes only. Anything that we talk about as far as products in here, please refer to daytonsuperior.com, and you can access all of the application guides, technical data sheets, safety data sheets, all of that. It can be found out there on the products, on their various product pages. Okay, so Dayton Superior, we are the leading provider of engineered solutions for the concrete construction industry. As you see all of the things floating on the screen here, we have a lot of different products. That means we have a lot of different solutions that are available to you so that you can do, Simon's forming and shoring, concrete repair and restoration, bridge deck, rebar splicing, precast tilt-up construction, general construction in general. Can I say general again? Just really, the whole point here is that we've got the solutions that you need for your project. We have chemical solutions that are really formulated specific to meet the design on the specs for new construction or retrofit repair needs. I already talked about Simon's, and we have all of the various things as well as engineering services and training. If you need additional training after this webinar, please contact Chuck and myself, and we'll be happy to set something up for you and get you going. Okay, so we're here to talk about wall forming and its accessories. And Mr. Hoke is here. He's hanging around the business industry for how long, Chuck? 49, or did you do your 50th yet?
No, I got 5 months still sick.
5 months. You got a little ticker tape parade planned or what?
No.
Should I do that? Okay, I better do that. Y'all come down to Dayton, Ohio, or up to Dayton, Ohio, and we'll have a parade. But back to Chuck. He spent 20 years dealing in accessories, forming, and chemical products. 29 of those years have been with Dayton Superior. He's got a lot of diverse roles and hats that he wears and has worn in the past, including, product management, business and civil engineering concepts. He's the guy who just, if you want a nice chat about concrete construction, he can do that all for you. So with that, I'm going to leave it because Chuck, he's awesome. And here he is to talk about wall forming and the accessories.
Thank you, Heidi, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so what we're going to do today is we are going to talk a little bit about concrete wall forming and its accessories. But before to talk about concrete formwork, you have to understand concrete form pressure. Concrete actually exerts a pressure on the forms when it's poured. It's basically, if you think of the form as a mold, and the concrete itself is a liquid material because it is in a fluid state being poured into that mold, it's going to push outward. So, and it's going to exert a pressure, and that's why you have to have ties to actually hold the forms in place. And basically, when you pour your concrete, you're going to have roughly 150 pounds of pressure pushing outward for every cubic foot of concrete that you have in there. So basically every foot of concrete in height of concrete wall. Kind of one of the things you're going to find out here that we're going to make a pressure. Concrete, as you add concrete to this wall, it is actually going to increase in the pressure. And it doesn't matter how thick the wall is or how narrow it is. if you put a foot of concrete in a 12-inch wall, it's going to be the same amount of pressure that's put on with a 48-inch thick wall. The big difference here, the 48-inch wide wall is going to take a little bit longer to pour that concrete, so it actually will probably set up quicker on you than you would in a 12-inch wall. Usually the hardest wall to pour is usually a 6-inch, excuse me, a 6-inch wall. Yeah. As the thinner the wall, because contractors have a tendency to want to pour it faster. So you have to be very careful. You don't want to blow out. So, and as you pour, and the elevations start to increase, as you can see here, every foot that you put in place here, if you were to pull this full liquid head, this form here, you would actually exert 900 pounds per square foot of pressure on the bottom of the form. 1 foot up would be 750, a foot above that would be 600, and so forth and so on, till you get to the top of the form. So you really have to pay close attention. And one of the things that actually is going to take place right now, because of the situation that we have, we're getting into the cold season. Yeah, it has been a little nippy in the morning. So concrete will take a little bit longer to cure. So your concrete pour rates have to slow down to allow the concrete that you poured 15, 20, 30, 45 minutes ago to cure. Now, typically concrete will cure in 1 hour at 70 degrees. Well, we haven't seen 70 degrees in a week.
At least.
And the poor people in upstate New York may not see it for another 4 months. So, but you're looking at concrete now because of the temperature being so cold, and then the problem is this is actually going all the way down to Atlanta and Florida, et cetera. I mean, these guys here, and most contractors, they go to pour a foundation wall, they come in and pour it. They will do the same pour rate and everything that they did on the last job. Well, the last job may have been 70 degrees. It may only be 50 or 40 degrees today. They'll end up going to blowout because the concrete hasn't had an opportunity to actually set up on it. So, and obviously what we talked about, hotter temperatures, it sets up quicker. Colder temperature, it takes a little bit longer to set up. Matter of fact, as you can see, it almost doubles in only a 30-degree swing in temperature and curing time. So when you look at pour rates, typically you're going to pour concrete anywhere from 4 to 5 foot an hour, most contractors. That way you don't overload the forms too much. You don't overstress the ties. But now in colder weather, to maintain the same pressure, you've actually got to slow your pour down. And with today's weather, probably 50%. So if instead of pouring 5 foot an hour, you're going to be around 2.5 foot an hour. And if you've got questions relating to it, we have a great handbook for this. We actually, in our concrete forming handbook, we actually have pour rates and et cetera, as far as pressure, how long it is. And if you do have a question in regards to pour rate, et cetera, feel free to give us a call. We can actually help answer those questions for you. So one of the things you're going to find out here, all the things we talked about, pour rates, et cetera. Yeah, we can pour concrete as fast as we want. We can actually make those forms so that we can pour concrete 15, 20 feet tall. But we have to have a couple of things. We have to have a form that is strong enough to handle the pressure, and we have to have a tie that is capable of carrying the load. Remember, I said the ties are put in place to actually hold the forms in place. So the ties are going to be what is holding that mold or that form in shape. And if the ties fail, typically that's when you have a form failure. So, but everything we do typically has a factor of safety involved in it. So typically you're looking at a 2-to-1 safety factor with the majority of all ties here in the marketplace. You will see a couple of different things here. You will have a safe working load tie and an ultimate tie. An ultimate tie typically is just a tie where they've taken it and broke it at its ultimate capacity. And that's what they're load rating it at, is their loading capacity, ultimate loading capacity. ACI requires you to actually have a 2-to-1 safety factor on all ties. So if you take that ultimate load divided by 2, that's going to give you your safe working load. Hence, that's where Dayton Superior comes up with their safe working load ties. So let's start building a wall. Well, every wall has to basically be built on a good base. You have to have a concrete footer. And for this, we actually have our SC chair, which is a great addition here to the system here. This actually goes into the footer here. Typically, a lot of footers, you can either dig your trench, you can form it. I see more and more guys going to just trench footers where they'll actually take basically a trench and dig out the trench with a backhoe and then start filling it with concrete. Well, typically you have to have some rebar in there. So this SC chair is designed to hold 2 bars, typically anywhere from 3 to 8 inches in height off the bottom of the form.
And that's what that green circles are,
The
right?
green circles are rebar.
Notice you were doing some great artistic things
Yeah.
there.
So what this will do, this will enable you to actually have a little bit of reinforcement. Now, typically most footers don't have a whole lot of lateral reinforcement here until you get into bigger, heavier structures. But in like house building, light commercial, etc., typically they only have a couple of pieces of rebar typically within the footers. Then you're going to build your wall. Here we're showing just a standard wood sticks and boards wall. Snap ties using a cone snap tie and a washer snap tie. We got studs, we got whalers, and wedges on the end to actually hold everything together. So this system here is typically one of the oldest systems in the marketplace. It was originally developed about 1919 was when the snap tie first came out. And it's been around for a long time, has not gone through a whole lot of revisions. There's been some minor changes to the snap tie, but pretty much predominantly staying the same with it. Has a definitive wall dimension on it. And typically you can get these in a couple of different grades, a light duty and a heavy duty version. Typically, what you want to look at, you've got concrete flow. Why do you want to use snap ties? Because with your sheeting, your stud, whaler, strong back kicker, all these things are required to actually accommodate a system. Now, the system can be a studded or whaler. As you see, the system here on the left side here is what we call a stud and whale system. That's because the stud is against the plywood and the whaler is sitting on this as a secondary support. On the other side here, it's a whale strongback system. Somatics. It really doesn't make any difference which way you go. As a contractor, whatever your preference is, both systems are totally acceptable. Both will carry the same concrete load. It all depends which way the contractor likes to form. Myself, I am a stud and whale guy because that's the way I was taught when I started in this business. So I see more forming going this way here. You can see a strong back system on a lot of jobs here. Believe me, those systems actually, it's just contractor preference as to which one works best. Snap ties, like I said, started around 1919. Tie's been a huge product for Dayton Superior for a good many years. High quality, you get it available with a cone, with a washer. You can get it with stainless steel. You can get it with cupped washers. Different breakbacks are available, anything from a 1/4 inch all the way up to, I've seen them up to 3 inches available. Recommend anything over 1 inch. you should have a cone on it. It does come with a break back in the tie so that you can have the tie break back inside the wall so you don't have any steel exposed onto the surface. And you can get them with different end dimensions basically to accommodate stud whale, single whale system. Whatever your forming system is, the reinforcing system you're going to have on the outside of the form, you can accommodate that with the snap tie. Now, one of the other systems that we have here is we have a Gates cam lock system here. This is one of the more newer systems in the marketplace. Great product system. This is our Sherlock tie. The Sherlock actually uses a couple of different things, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. Has the integral cone, just like your snap tie. Does offer a 1-inch break back. And you can accommodate these ties, whatever system you're using. Big difference with that system is the wedges or excuse me, the cams, and then what we would call grasshoppers or the strongback holders. They're coming up. They're a little bit more expensive than the tie wedge. The tie wedge has been predominantly the leader in the snap tie. Typically, you'll hear them referred to as hairpins, etc. But guys will actually use these ties here. I like to accommodate when I talk to contractors, they look at a hairpin and they look at it and they go, well, what's the difference between yours and another customer? Ours uses a round slot edge, and all of our edges are actually ground down so they don't cut into the steel. When does that make a difference? Well, you get a guy that's overzealous with a hammer, pounds it onto the steel, onto the tie wedge or onto the snap tie, he will actually cut the snap tie. Now, the Jahn forming system is a quick and easy system, single whale system. So it uses less lumber. It's the fastest single whale system in the marketplace. Typically uses a short end snap tie. Short end snap tie typically has a 4 3/4 end, which accommodates a 2x4 and a 3/4 inch plywood, and then has a 1/2 inch available on the tie for that eccentric to tighten everything up. So you basically have very few nails, if any, on the system here. It's quick, it's easy, and it's fast. The system basically consists of using a short on snap tie and using a Jahn A bracket. This system here, high strength, typically has a 5/8 inch take up on the back, a little bit more than a 1/2 inch. So it's got a little bit of extra place. So if your lumber is a little bit short, not a problem. You've got extra space you can take up with this eccentric. Now, the one thing with this system, it is designed as a light duty system only. It's only a 2,250-pound system versus the heavy duty, which is 3,350, which you would have to go back to using the tie wedge for.
And drum roll.
And we have our Jahn C bracket. Jahn C bracket actually will accommodate any strongbacks that you want to put on the system. Typically, I always recommend a strongback roughly every 8 foot. One of the reasons why you want to use a strongback is for form alignment, vertical form alignment. You think of the whaler is going to give you a horizontal alignment, the vertical alignment will come from that strongback. And with that, you can use a Jahn C bracket to accommodate that. Jahn forming systems, like I said, it's easy, quick. You can stack drill your plywood, 1/8 inch larger holes than the snap tie head. Typically, you're going to drill about a 5/8 inch hole into the form. You're going to actually, and you can drill right through a whole stack of plywood. Typically, you want to set your pattern up on your plywood to either do a 2x2 spacing or a 18 by 18 spacing that will accommodate all the sheets of plywood, whether they're used in the vertical position or laid down on their side. And like I said, I like to put strongbacks every 8 foot, and typically this can be accommodated by just switching out the 4 3/4 end ties with an 8 1/4 inch end tie basically every fourth tie. Also have turnbuckles. Turnbuckles are for basically their alignment units only. They are not set up as a brace. At Dayton, we actually have two. We have an A27, which has a bent plate. We have an A27M, which has a flat plate. The bent plate typically is designed to attach to lumber formwork, a whaler running across the top of the form. If you're not using a whaler, you're using strongbacks only, you can go to the A27M. It'll make life a little bit easier to attach it. If you're using a strongback, or excuse me, if you're using a modular forming system, then you can go to the A27M. Once again, if you own them, no big deal between which one you can use, which one you can't use. I personally prefer the A27M because I can accommodate that with both a vertical system here, a whale and a strongback, or a modular system. So it's much more universal. Now, the Sherlock system, probably it's as fast as the Jahn system. The system here basically consists of the tie with the one integral cone, self-centering, 1 by 1. So it means you have a 1 inch, when you break everything back, you're going to have 1 inch conical shape at the face of the concrete. You can break the plastic tie out. You'll have a 1 inch break back on the concrete wall itself. And this system here uses a couple of different components. It has the Sherlock bracket, the A56 Sherlock bracket,
Hopper.
and then the A57 strongback bracket, which is often referred to as the grasshopper.
Up north, anyway.
Well, most around the country. This system here, the system here has been around for a very long time. It's a great quality system. You can use it to accommodate a 2 single whale 2x4 system, and then a single 2x4 stud with the A57 Sherlock strongback bracket. Now, if you got your concrete forms in place here, you're gonna have one side, but your other side, you've got to leave it open because you're going to actually attach basically a larger concrete pour. Maybe you've got a big mass footing going, or a big mass foundation going in place here. And you can't pour it all at once because it may overheat. So you actually break it up into smaller pours. Well, one of the great things you can do is you can use an A10 metal rib material. This material typically you can place where at your joints, pour your concrete up to it. It's reinforced relatively quick and easy by using steel stakes to hold it in place. And you have to punch a hole through it. You can actually punch a hole through it relatively quick and easy for any rebar that has to pass through. But this actually gives you a surface that is a good roughened surface, so you can, when you make your next pour up to against this on the other side, you've got a good rough surface. So you're going to increase a lot of surface area. So you're going to get a good bond with the two concrete pours. These systems here typically comes in 18 square feet per sheet. Typically it's 26 gauge. Typically you're going to put, steel stakes, G27 nail stake, about every 3 to 4 foot on these spacing, and to hold them in place. As you can see here, you don't have, usually these types of pours aren't designed to give you any architectural feature. It doesn't, You will get some bowing and shifting with this system, but you typically do not get a blowout with this system. What happens here is this system is going to give you a good rough system so you can come back and pour up against it later on and actually have a good roughen surface. So you don't have to apply any roughen, basically you don't have to come back through and roughen the surface to increase that surface area. And I said before, we would hold it in place with the G27 nail stakes. Our nail stakes here, we got both available with holes or without holes. You can use it either way. Here we can see guys using them with just a piece of rebar. And you'll see actually on this system here, they actually use the tie to actually basically to hold that piece of rebar in place. And what's happened here is they will pour up against it. This is a single-sided wall forming. In this situation here, where they're using it here, they couldn't pour right up against the wall next to them because of the building properties. The buildings had to be kept separate, and they couldn't strip their forms. So this actually goes in place here, where because you don't have to strip this, you don't have to remove this from the form. This can actually stay in place and be your dividing factor between your two property lines. Ties that we talked about having ties to accommodate that. We have 846 snap ties with a loop, and it's got a little plate so it can attach to any of the steel that you have for reinforcement. You can also go to a loop tie, combination tie, that can actually, we have special hooks that can grab rebar. You could actually use just a piece of coil rod if you're doing one-sided wall forming, etc. with that. Those are all readily available. And we can also accommodate on the ends here, instead of a snap tie end, we can put a loop tie end for a modular like steel ply forming system. When all else fails, pencil rod. Pencil rod is basically a 1/4 inch piece of steel, typically available in 20-foot lengths or 600-foot rolls. And it's basically it gets stretched out. You put a D12 rod clamp on the end of it, often referred to as a cat head, which I don't know. That was one name I didn't pick, but it is what it is. So the guys will put a D12 rod clamp on it, tighten it down. On the other side here, they put the D12 rod clamp up against it. They will put a D14 tightening wrench on it, clamp the tightening wrench down out, and then unscrew it to actually stretch it out. And what that'll happen is that will stretch the wire. Once you get your wall definitive thickness, you actually tighten that rod clamp up, loosen your D14, take it off, and bend your wires up. Not a real strong system, but it comes when you have to have a tie in place. This is one that actually can be made to fit and accommodate most situations. Now, resources that we have available here. I like to think that Dayton Superior has one of the best sources available to the contractor and to the dealer for any product literature. You've got technical safety data sheets. You got the system web pages. You got technical data sheets. You're going to have application guides, handbooks, success stories, and sales flyers. And by chance you don't know who your sales rep is in the area, you can actually go on the website and look up and hit the contact us, and up will come a map area here where you can pick whether Dayton or Simons. Select the area that you're in based on what product line you're looking for, and it will give you the salesman's name and his phone number. So now you have all the contact information you need.
You want to do this or you want me to?
I'll let you handle it from
Okay,
here.
you guys, if you have any questions, go ahead and enter them now. I'm going to tell you about an awesome deal that's going on this month for our Superior Deal of the Month. So Chuck talked about a lot of the products that are on special this month. The ones that are great were not really talked about, but I want you to know about them because you might want to buy them. And definitely a good deal going on. There is a couple terms that apply, and that's just because it's only select sizes, like specifically the P75 or the import. But we're talking concrete adhesive, the T28 superior plate dowel systems that connect so that you can have a nice even flow underneath your concrete floor. No falling on your toes, basically. The P75 utility anchors and P75R anchors, as well as the superior wall finish. We've got a little how-to video out there. It's really cool to see one of our sales dudes doing it. It's great. And then the other ones there we've talked about through this presentation. So just contact your sales representative for details. And are there any questions for this presentation? As a reminder, we record all of these and we'll get them placed out a little bit later on today. Again, I'm going to go to the next screen here. And if you have any requests for training, please feel free to scan that QR code that you see there, the box, the blue box, and it will push you to a little form that just says, what do you need? And it goes to Chuck and myself, and we will figure that out and contact you and get that training going. So it doesn't look like there's any questions. You did a good job, Mr. Chuck.
Good. Well, if anybody thinks about this or thinks about later on, feel free to contact us at training@DaytonSuperior.com.
Fantastic. I forgot to talk about that email address. Yep. If you just want to say hi to us, that goes to us too.
There you go.
Anyway, you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.